Mark Williams is on the line with us, marktalk.com, his website. He's a Tea Party activist and talk show host. And Mark, it seems to me that the strategy that the Republicans are playing out, and I'd like to actually have a serious conversation with you about this. And I saw this, first of all, welcome to the program.
Well, it's always fun to be with you, Tom.
Thank you, Mark. I saw this coming when Obama compromised with the Republicans and said, I'll give you 2 years of tax cuts, of extending the Bush tax cuts, which is less money that can be used to stimulate the economy, less money that can be used to put people back to work. I'll give you that if you'll give me 1 year of unemployment extensions, which are going to run out at the end of this year. So he's going to have the whole election year of 2012 with millions of people rolling off the unemployment rolls into, from something close to poverty into something close to desperation. And everything looks to me like the Republican strategy here is what Mitch McConnell said it would be right after the midterm elections, that their primary goal is not to create jobs. It's not to build the economy. It's not to make this a better country. It's to deny Obama a second term as president.
Well, as a matter of party policy, that, of course, is true in any given election cycle. But the actual
I don't think so. I don't think that was true during the Eisenhower administration, or even during the Nixon administration.
The Democrat policy is not that different right now. They are to keep taking as much as they can from us to keep themselves flush and the people whom they dole that money out to flush against the interests of the American working stiff.
Well, I think if you're describing the Koch brothers, you've got it right on. If you're describing the millionaires and billionaires in America, I'm totally with you.
You name me somebody who's on the inside of anybody on Manhattan Island or inside the Beltway of Washington D.C., and you've pretty much nailed it. These are people who are only just now discovering, and I love the massive headlines on even Fox News and the rest. Oh my God, the recovery is sputtering. What's happening to the recovery? We've been in a depression since 2007.
Well, since 2006, actually.
To dawn on these elites that the rest of us, the people who cut their lawns and don their socks, are finally, it's finally dawning on them that there's a problem out here. These people are Marie Antoinette on steroids.
Yeah, Mark, I'm not disagreeing with you. It was actually 2006, the middle of 2006. I believe it was August or September. It might have been October. That the report came out that U.S. housing starts were down 24% and new housing starts were down 29%. And that were
the following year. So that's
those were numbers that were identical to 1926, when the housing bubble burst in Florida and in California, and which set up the stock market crash a year and a half later. And sure enough, its history has repeated itself perfectly here. And the only difference is that Herbert Hoover didn't stimulate the economy for 2.5 years, and things just got worse and worse and worse and worse, froze up to the point that the week that Franklin Roosevelt took office, virtually every bank in America had failed because credit was totally locked up. And Bush at least tried to unlock credit. I think he did it the wrong way. It should have been bottom up rather than top down. But, there was something done there, and Obama came in and stimulated the economy to some small extent. As Paul Krugman pointed out, Bush had kicked actually 30 years of Reaganomics had kicked a $2.6 trillion hole in the side of our economy, and they tried to patch it with an $800 billion stimulus that was actually only $500 billion with the stimulus. Almost 300 of it was tax cuts, which don't stimulate anything. So you're right. I think that we're heading into an even worse depression. I think it's going. It's not just going to be a double dip. It's going to be a disaster. But the Republicans are preventing anything from being done about it, and they're doing it for party politics, and I think that's treason.
Well, at this point, what's being done, and by the way, Bush did light the fuse of the bomb that finally went off, and we all know that now. Well,
actually, Mark, let me say something that you're probably going to make your head explode. I'd say Bill Clinton lit the fuse when he signed the Commodity Futures Modernization Act in '99, and when he signed Gramm-Leach-Bliley in 2000. And it wasn't, and this isn't to blame Bill Clinton for it, frankly. I mean, it was the majority of the supporters of this were Republicans, and maybe Clinton just wasn't paying attention. But when he opened, we went from none of these phony debt instruments, bets on bets on bets, these so-called CDOs and all these other exotic things. None of them in the 90s. to $900 trillion worth, when the GDP of the entire planet is only $65 trillion. $900 trillion worth of these things in 2007. It was like, that's, and this was something, by the way, that the Koch brothers had been lobbying for. It turns out,
Phil
really
Graham. Off the rails, we can trace it back to Teddy Roosevelt and the rise of the progressive movement. But at the moment,
what does the progressive movement have to do?
Is what's going on in Washington, and what the Republican Party is doing with the starch of the Tea Party as their backbone. Believe me, the Republicans would be caving in all over themselves if not for the Tea Party. What they're doing is they're standing up and saying, listen, we've got a government that is the analogy is you're an alcoholic and you're demanding another gallon of booze, and then you swear to God, honest Injun, you'll try to bring it under control. What the Republican Party with the Tea Party starts.
It's a lousy metaphor, Mark. It's an absolutely that is an absolutely useless metaphor, because spending. Let me finish my sentence, Mark. Let me finish my sentence, Mark. Mark, hold on just a second here. Mark, I'm putting you on hold here. It is a lousy metaphor because spending money to give people jobs is not destructive. And an alcoholic drinking alcohol is destructive. That metaphor is meaningless. Come up with a better metaphor if you're going to use it.
To give people jobs.
And why was it that you guys weren't yelling about the debt during Reagan?
We were. I was yelling about the debt myself 30 years ago during Carter, in my first radio show gig. So, and I was 35 years.
But this has been Republican policy to spend like drunken sailors.
Now is it's not the money being suggested for stimulus or job creation that's causing this problem. It's the other $1.69 trillion in immediate deficit and the $170 trillion. That's $500,000 per man, woman, and child in this country. Deficit to the future.
You're talking about over the next 70 years?
We are bankrupt.
We are not bankrupt. We are the richest country in the world. We've got an enormous amount of money. Mark, during the Eisenhower presidency, we had 126% of GDP as our debt when Eisenhower came into office, or when Truman ended World War II. Eisenhower got us out of that by spending money. He built all those schools. He built hospitals. He built a highway system. He put people back to work. The GI Bill put people in school for free and paid them a stipend to go to school. And that's how we grew our way out of that debt. You name for me one country in the history of this world that has ever cut its way to prosperity. One country.
I don't think any country's ever been $170 trillion under the water before.
We are not $170 trillion under the water.
Planet Earth.
We are not. It's an absolute phony number, Mark. You're taking today's budgets and projecting them out 70 years with horrible assumptions about economic futures. If you simply did away with the Social Security cap,
under the Tea Party default.
Yeah, and it's a nonsense number. But I guess it'll be your numbers versus my numbers at this point. MarkTalk.com, Mark Williams. Mark, thanks for dropping by today.
Anytime.
15 minutes past the hour. Are we broke? What do you think?